representation theory. In this lesson, I tried to explain to you what does representation through visuals mean. I also elaborate the interconnectedness between representation, semiotics and rhetoric. While I have dealt with semiotics and rhetoric in the previous lessons, in this lesson you feel comfortable to learn about representation in relation to the other two. Representation is a key concept to semiotics, phenomenology and rhetoric. In general, each of these fields has its own vocabulary, its own leaders and its own assumptions, which together seem to lock scholars into a fixed and limited theoretical approach to investigating pictures. The three mental construction theories are closely tied with phenomenology, and the causal relations, resemblance, conventional theories are closely tied with semiotics. Rhetoric has a looser connection to conventional theory and the mental construction theories. Future theoretical work should attempt to facilitate communication and argumentation among these three competing isolated fields in order to create a theoretical synthesis that would be useful to anyone studying pictures and how they represent. To impart the student about representation through visual arts, to inform the learner about the relationship between semiotics, phenomenology, rhetoric and representation, to enlighten the student in brief about four types of theories that offer a wider scope of representation. Behaviorists attempt to observe and measure the real world directly. Phenomenologists are exclusively interested in persons' introspective experience. Semioticians and rhetoricians try to understand the linkages between our internal world and the external world, and that linkage is necessary as they believe that the external world is always mediated by our senses and our mind. Whereas rhetoricians have investigated how humans create and manipulate symbols in order to persuade other humans, some semioticians have been more interested in how humans interpret all kinds of signs, including symbols that were created by other people, as well as natural signs that may have resulted from plants, animals or inorganic matter. Both rhetoricians and semioticians therefore are concerned with how signs mediate between the external world and our internal world, or how a sign stands for or takes the place of something from the real world in the mind of a person. What these scholars are concerned with is called representation. In this lesson, I try to explain in brief the strengths and weaknesses of four types of theories of how pictures represent. The concept of representation has been thought of as a relationship with the 2, 3 and 4 parts. The two-part model is associated with Saussure among many others, who defined the linguistic sign as a two-sided psychological entity consisting of a sign vehicle and its meaning. He used the word signifier for the sign vehicle. The antecedent experience or the word or expression or speech sound, and the word signified for the meaning of the sign, the consequent experience or the thing or the content or the response in hearer. I have explained this in one of your lessons. The three-part model is associated with Persis, who defined representation as a relationship among sign, object and interpretant. For Persis, semiosis occurs when an existing sign is connected with the object signified to produce a meaning in the mind of the interpreter. The four-part model is associated with Mitchell. The additional dimension is the maker of the representation. Mitchell envisions representation as a quadrilateral with the two diagonal axes, one connecting the representational object to that which it represents, like Saussure's dyadic model, and the other connecting the maker of the representation to the viewer. The lines connecting the signifier and the object are called the axis of representation. The lines connecting the maker and the viewer are called the axis of communication. Persis' triadic model omits the fourth dimension, maker, because it allows the possibility of natural signs which do not have makers who intend to communicate. One advantage of Mitchell's model therefore is that it emphasizes communication appropriate for the study of pictures, which presumably were created with the intention to communicate or to express the creator's feeling or to elicit an intended emotional response in viewers. A crucial consideration for the analysis of representation is the relationship between the sign and the object. Semioticians distinguish three types of relationship. an iconic relationship that stresses resemblance, a symbolic relationship that is primarily arbitrary, and an indexical relationship that is based on cause and effect, or a relation such as physical proximity or connectedness. Most representations use more than one type of sign-object relationship. The four types of theory of pictorial representation are directly connected to these three types of relationship between signs and their objects. Causal relation theories, including transparency theory and recognition theory, emphasize indexical and iconical relationships. Resemblance theories, including non-perceptual and perceptual, emphasize iconic relations. Conventional theories emphasize symbolic relations. Mental construction theories, including illusion, make-believe and seeing in, emphasize iconic and symbolic relations. This chapter also relates to four types of theory to Mitchell's model of representation. Transparency theory, the picture is made automatically. Kendall Walton made the provocative statement that photographers for films or videos are transparent and we see the world through them. Considered camera pictures to be aids to vision, just as we look through transparent eyeglasses, telescopes and microscopes in order to see things that we would not be able to see with just our eyes. We supposedly can see the real dancer for stretching even though the dancer is not in our presence. Moreover, Walton claims that camera pictures allow us to see into the past. He wrote that we see quite literally our dead relatives themselves when we look at photographs of them. This power of photography, wrote Walton, comes from the mechanical or automatic origins. A photograph of a couple having a picnic on a grassy hill, for example, was mechanically caused by light reflecting off the man and the woman, bottles of soda and wine, blanket, plastic plates and so on onto a piece of light sensitive film. The image also is mechanical because if someone placed a camera with the same film, lens, position and soon as with the first photo in the picnickers and background elements and the light never changed, then the same results would automatically occur. It seems therefore that we see things first hand through the transparent photograph. Handmade pictures, that is drawings and paintings, would be considered second hand information because a picture maker's judgment intervenes. High hand coordination cannot make exact copies as a mechanical camera can. Transparency theory states that a camera picture represents a phenomenon because it was automatically and mechanically caused by the existence of the phenomenon and because the picture looks like exactly like the phenomenon. In terms of Goodman's four-dimensional model of representation, it exclusively focuses on the vertical is running from the object to its sign. Transparency theory is silent about the communication is running from maker to viewer because it ignores the viewer and the maker. Transparency theory ignores the viewer because it assumes that viewers are so naive as to think that they are actually seeing the object themselves when looking at camera picture. The theory ignores the fact that viewers interpret pictures. Transparency theory also pretends that a picture of a migrant worker stands for us for just that individual when in fact it may stand for a whole group of migrant workers. Transparency theory ignores the maker and his or her ability to control the taking, developing and printing of film. When Walton tries to rebut arguments about the control of picture makers and therefore the lack of mechanical automaticity, he argued that just because we see things through a photographer's eyes does not mean that we do not really see them. I do see those things myself, he wrote. In other words, the viewer has control over seeing, not the maker. This is an important philosophical point because whoever controls the seeing decides where attention and the mind was fixed. The controller intends the meaning. If photographers control the seeing as generally believed, then we look at the results of their intentions. We can, of course, misinterpret their intentions and we can see more or less than was intended. For example, we can draw on our own background hosted lack of knowledge of dancing in general for this particular dancer to see more or less than was intended, but the photographer is in control. If photography is an aid to vision, Walton wrote, then we should be able to control the seeing just as we use it to a telescope to see the dancers stretching the telescope and the change what we are depicting on our interest. We cannot here control the seeing with a camera picture, so Walton cannot see this himself. In fact, the only time that viewers can control imagery is with virtual reality equipment. If we had access to real-time photographic quality, three-dimensional imagery of the dancer stretching and if the dancer took 10 seconds to hold a stretch, and we saw her stretching for 10 seconds, and if we could control our angle and distance of viewpoint, then we might agree the medium is transparent and that we can see through the medium of the dancer, and there was no intent by the maker, and essentially the maker could be eliminated from the representation process. Warburton in 1988 for criticisms of the transparency theory. If we reject the transparency theory and acknowledge that photographers communicate their intentions, then camera pictures seem kind of like paintings, yet because there is some causal connection between the film image and the subject, camera pictures also seem special. Maynard used the concepts of depiction and detection to explain the special nature of camera pictures. To depict is to represent, which means to stand for or to communicate by signs or symbols. To detect is to discover something with certainty. Like paintings, camera pictures depict because they represent things that may be real fiction. Unlike paintings, camera pictures detect because they are the results of photochemical action. Camera pictures issued as detection have automatic quality as sunburns. Another example of a trace of photochemical action. Camera pictures also seem to give evidence of the fact of photochemical effects, just like sunburns. A pure photographic depiction would represent something, but not be a trace of that thing. A photograph of a fairy and angel or the Loch Ness monster would be a pure depiction because it would represent a fictional phenomenon, and yet the fictional phenomenon would not have caused the photochemical action. For example, a photographic depiction of a blueberry ice cream may actually be a photograph of mashed potatoes with blue food coloring. A pure photographic detection would ascertain the presence of something, but it would not represent or be about anything. Examples of photographs used purely for detection would include traces of light from stars and traces of radiation from X-rays. Another example of a non-depicting photograph would be any image that resulted from accidentally pressing the shutter. From viewing the resulting image, we could discover what had been in front of the camera, but that scene would not represent anything. In conclusion, transparency theory is important because many viewers and some picture makers continue to implicitly, if not explicitly, believe that camera pictures are aids to vision that allows us to see the world directly. People enjoy looking at photographs of loved ones. They use photographs as evidence in courts of law, and news organizations use photographs to report on people and events. From a theoretical perspective, the idea that camera pictures have limited indexical relationship to their objects and a limited iconic relationship is valid but not new. The ideas that camera pictures do not offer viewers control over what they see is more interesting because that fundamental idea may change with the development of virtual reality equipment. The concepts of depiction and the detection are useful for clarifying the nature of documentary pictures. Overall, however, the insufficient roles given to makers and viewers hurt this theory of pictorial representation. Recognition theory, the picture reminds you of the object or person. This theory states that a picture represents phenomenon because the picture looks exactly like the phenomenon. It emphasizes the iconic relationship between sign and object and de-emphasizes any symbolic relationship in terms of Goodman's four-dimensional model of the representation. Recognition theory focuses both on the vertical and running from the object to its sign and on the viewer. It resembles Peirce's triadic model of the sign. A key concept of recognition theory is aspects. Wilkerson suggested that aspect seeing has 5 main features. Seeing aspects involves noticing resemblances. Seeing aspects is an imaginative activity. We visualize the scene of a dancer stretching even if the dancer is not present. Seeing aspects is subject to the will. We can try to see an aspect and others can guide our efforts by drawing our attention to crucial parts of the picture. Whereas with ordinary seeing, we do not make an attempt to see what is in front of us. Seeing an aspect is detached from the belief. We may see a swan aspect in a cloud or picture, yet we won't believe that the cloud or picture is literally a swan. Seeing an aspect often involves different experiences, and one of them, the experience of suddenly noticing an aspect or a change of aspect, is akin to experiencing a sudden dawning of understanding. Recognition theory de-emphasizes the symbiotic relationship between sign and object because it states that picturing is generative, which means we do not need to learn the meaning of unfamiliar pictures in the way we must learn the meaning of unfamiliar words. We can generate understanding of almost any picture of familiar object at glance, provided we have mastered the pictorial system. When we encounter new pictorial systems, for example cubism, we must first learn the system and then we can again recognize any familiar objects. Pictorial competence therefore is a system relative, and pictorial recognition abilities can vary in speed and accuracy with the system of representation. Conventionalists who emphasize the symbolic relationship between sign and object believe that first we learn the conventional codes, grammar, language, vocabulary or other system based on social agreement, and then we can read pictures. Recognition theories, on the other hand, take almost the opposite approach. They believe we can see pictures and identify objects in pictures and thereby learn about the world and real life. In a sense, the picture books of our youth become socially agreed on conventions for understanding the world and real life. Despite its appeal, non-perceptual resemblance theory has several problems. First, resemblance is a symmetrical relationship. If the color picture resembles dancer stretching, then the dancer stretching must also resemble the color picture. Representation, however, is not symmetrical. We believe that the photo may represent the dancer, but the dancer cannot represent the photo. Therefore, a resemblance relationship does not distinguish a representation from what it represents. Second, a picture resembles a copy of itself more than it resembles the dancer, but a picture cannot represent a picture, nor can it represent itself. Resemblance therefore is not sufficient for pictorial representation because resemblance exists without representation. Third is the chicken egg problem. Do we notice the picture subject similarities and then know what is represented, or do we first know what is represented and later notice similarities? Perception based resemblance theory. The second type of resemblance theory, like recognition theory, based on perception. A painting resembles its subject if the painting has the same power to affect our organs of sight as its subject. According to resemblance theory, at an early stage of vision, at least we just receive a visual information and what we see is not affected by our beliefs, values or background knowledge. This early visual information is segregated from higher cognitive processes. It also is separated from information from other sense. The process of acquiring this early visual information is the same whether we view pictures or real life. Both lead to the same perceptual experience. If this theory was correct, then we could initially view pictures with an innocent eye. It also would mean that someone from a primitive culture who had never seen a photograph before but who was used to seeing elephants should be able to recognize a photo of an elephant. In conclusion, recognition theory is related to transparency theory because pictures and objects have the same properties. Even if the picture is a cubist painting, we could follow a circuitous route from the features of the painting to the features of the dancer stretching. Recognition theory also recalls Walton's idea that photographers are an aid to vision. About pictorial recognition, Lopes writes, pictures are visual prostheses. They extend the informational system by gathering, storing and transmitting visual information about their subjects in ways that depend upon and also augment our ability to identify things by their appearance instead of being limited to photographs. However, recognition theory can explain any type of picture. In addition, it recognizes the necessary role of the viewer to interpret the picture, and the sophisticated concept of aspects explains how that interpretation occurs. Theory, however, allows too much latitude to the spectator's imagination and does not explain how picture makers limit our roving imaginations and constrain what we see as the representative features of the picture. Another problem is that theory cannot explain how pictures can misrepresent or be inaccurate. Types of resemblance theories. There are two major types of resemblance theories. Both are based on the idea that pictures resemble their objects, which means that the iconic nature of a sign-object relationship is emphasized. In terms of a Goodman's four-dimensional model of representation, resemblance theories exclusively focus upon the vertical axis running from the object to its sign. They are silent about the communication axis running from maker to viewer because they ignore the viewer and the maker. Resemblance theories apply to pigeons as well as humans, so no higher level thinking skills are required. A non-perceptual theory states that pictures represent by virtue of similarity with their subjects. This theory has intuitive appeal because when we look at pictures, we seem to see similarities between the picture and what it represents. Goodman criticized this theory, writing that while a picture may resemble its subject in some respects, in many respects it does not. A two-dimensional 4" by 6" photograph of a dancer, for example, does not look like a 110-pound woman in most respects. To understand what someone means when she or he says this picture too like that subject, we must know which kinds of similarity she or he is referring to, and knowing which kinds of pertinent would depend on the context of the picture and on custom. Hyman overcame this criticism by explaining we are not comparing a flat object to its subject. Instead, we are comparing the marks of a picture to the marks of a subject. Resemblance theory goes still further. Peacock suggested that resemblance is not based on objective similarities between a picture and subject, but on subjective similarities between our experience of pictures and our experience of the subject. He distinguishes sensational and representational properties of experience. For any subject, there is a myriad of ways in which it can be seen, and to each of these ways there corresponds a different possible visual field defined as an imaginary plane interposed between the scene and the viewer. A picture's sensational content looks like its subject with respect to the properties of the spectator's visual field, not to some objective viewpoint. Because of the concept of visual fields, many pictures may resemble the same subject, yet those pictures may differ radically. Convention theories. Convention theory holds that a picture represents whatever it does by virtue of belonging to a symbol system with rules or conventions that link marked surfaces of pictures with external things. Convention theory is much different than the other theories because, according to Goodman, pictures do not copy, imitate or resemble their subjects. Instead, the relationship between a picture and its subject is based upon custom, and almost any picture may represent almost anything. This does not mean that almost any picture may depict almost anything. Recognizing at least some resemblance is necessary for depiction. But someone might protest, some pictures are realistic, and anyone looking at these realistic pictures would see the same subject. Goodman would respond that resemblance is just one of many possible conventional phenomena that can be used in representation. It is neither a sufficient nor a necessary condition for representation, because we think that resemblance between a picture and its subject is natural, and in the case of camera pictures, mechanical and automatic, we are tempted to draw the conclusion that resemblance is not a convention. Even filmic representations, however, are based on conventions. Their power and immediacy comes from the easy sharing of conventions among creators and viewers. The content of picture, Goodman wrote, determined by its syntactical and semantic properties, and when those properties become familiar or entrenched, the pictures seem realistic. Moreover, the degree to which a picture looks like its subject may increase or diminish as customs change. There are no fixed criteria for realism according to conventionalists. Instead, pictorial reality is shaped by a viewer's way of seeing, which is under the control of the conventions imposed by culture. In conclusion, Goodman has made rules or conventions central to picture representation, but his theory being justly criticized as having the consequence that any picture represents anything because resemblance between a picture and its object is rejected, necessary condition for depicting. This chapter reviews the advantages and disadvantages of 4 types of theory of pictorial representation and has related these theories both to Goodman's 4-dimensional model of representation and to Peirce's 3-part model of the relationship between signs and their objects. Any future theory that improves our understanding of pictorial representation will need to incorporate all 7 concepts: viewer and maker, sign and object, icon, index and a symbol. The problem with existing theories generally stem from an overemphasis on some of these concepts and the exclusion of others.